A truly urgent and important statement from Washington. Donald Trump admits defeat and has begun to retreat in the war against Iran. While his Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is stating at a briefing that America has already won, Donald Trump himself suddenly publicly promised Iran that he would not allow a repeat of Israel's strikes on the main Iranian gas hub, South Pars. Moreover, Iran recently showed that Trump's threats are not always realistic. Trump threatened to destroy the South Pars gas field if Iran attacked Qatari liquefied natural gas facilities again. As a result, Qatar announced that Iran's missile strikes have already disabled almost 20% of Qatar's LNG export capacity and damaged the world's largest liquefied natural gas plant. Now the Qatari Minister of Energy has stated that repairs will cost at least $26 billion and take from 3 to 5 years. In response, Trump did nothing, but the peak of Trump's retreat wasn't even in this. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent stated that the White House is planning to lift sanctions on Iranian oil at sea in order to contain rising oil prices. In other words, the U.S. is ready to lift the sanctions. Sanctions against an opponent they want to defeat. My name is Alex Peachy. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start this episode, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, give it a like, and leave any comment under this video. This really helps the YouTube algorithms recommend this episode to as many viewers as possible. Also, subscribe to my Telegram channel, Peachy News. The link is in the description of this video. There we post timely videos. So I'll start this episode with some truly shocking news. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent stated that the White House is considering lifting sanctions on Iranian oil at sea in order to curb rising oil prices. As he put it, Donald Trump's administration is using every available means, even easing the economic threat to its enemy in the war, to contain the rise in oil prices, which, by the way, Trump himself provoked by starting a war that has already seen dozens of major miscalculations. The price of Brent crude oil has jumped by 10% in just the last 24 hours, which is causing growing concern among investors. The price of Brent crude oil is now about $111 per barrel. That's almost 60% higher than before the war. And now here are these assessments and forecasts. It could cost $200 per barrel, and that no longer seems so unrealistic. In the end, Scott Bessent comes out and says, quote, "In the coming days, we may lift sanctions on Iranian oil that's currently at sea. That would amount to about 140 million barrels. Essentially, we'll be using Iranian oil against the Iranians to contain price increases for the next 10 to 14 days while we continue this campaign. So, we have a lot of leverage." It really makes you want to say, so, has a new mastermind moved into the White House? More master plans? He says we'll lift sanctions on the Iranians so they can make money for the war. And he says this will be an action against the Iranians themselves, huh? How did we outsmart them? That sounds absolutely crazy. So, while the US allies in the Persian Gulf can't sell their oil because Iran is blocking the Strait of Hormuz, the US just allows Iran to trade its own oil. Now here's the question. So, what incentive does Iran have to unblock the Strait of Hormuz then? What? Well, basically, Iran managed to get the sanctions lifted by force. And if this method works, then why give it up? Well, they can just keep blocking the Strait of Hormuz. And all the other countries can't trade oil. And the Americans will say, well, okay, let's lift more sanctions so Iran can keep trading oil. Great scheme. And this is a sign that Trump's war is getting out of control. Over the past few weeks, the White House has managed to keep prices in check with various assurances and measures. Promises to escort tankers through the critically important Strait of Hormuz, which, by the way, they still haven't done. The repeal of the Jones Act within the US. And the temporary lifting of sanctions on Russian oil. Let me explain here. The Jones Act is a law that requires any cargo between domestic American ports to be transported only by ships belonging to the United States of America. Now, any ships can be used. But if you look at the situation more broadly, lifting sanctions on Iranian oil would be a quote-unquote wonderful next step. That's exactly what the Iranians asked for during the negotiations last year. So just think about it. The Donald Trump administration is making concessions in wartime conditions that Trump wasn't willing to make in peacetime. As strange as it may sound in this matter, Iran won by force. Moreover, when the US is ready to lift sanctions on an opponent they want to destroy, it's the loudest signal that Trump has seriously miscalculated. And the situation is extremely unstable. But that's not all. Trump unexpectedly stated that Israel would not carry out further attacks on the main Iranian gas facility. Moreover, Trump's comments, which seemed to be an attempt to de-escalate the situation, came several hours later, after he himself gave the green light for the Israeli strike on the South Pars gas field. Overall, the attack on the South Pars gas field in Iran was the first time Israel struck gas industry facilities in Iran, which are crucial for the Iranian economy. And the thing is, Israeli and American officials stated that the strike was coordinated with the White House and approved by Trump. This is important, take note of it. But a few hours later, Iranian military forces launched 2 missile strikes on the industrial city of Ras Laffan in Qatar, hitting gas facilities. As a result, Qatar's Minister of Energy, Saad Al-Kaabi, stated that Iran's missile strikes disabled 17% of Qatar's liquefied gas export capacity. It will take 3 to 5 years to restore them, during which almost 13 million tons will be out of operation. As of today, 2 out of 14 production lines and 1 of the 2 plants for processing gas into liquid fuel have been damaged. According to Al-Kaabi, due to the damage, Qatar will lose $20 billion in annual income. Supplies to Europe and Asia are now under threat. According to Qatar Energy, repairs may require at least $26 billion. As a result, it is reported that after Iran's first missile strike on Wednesday evening, Qatari officials contacted White House envoy Stephen Witkoff, Central Command commanders, and other senior officials of the Trump administration. And they demanded to know whether the US had prior knowledge of the Israeli strike on the gas field in Iran. An hour after Iran's second missile strike on Qatar's gas field, Trump immediately stated that Israeli forces had launched a harsh attack and struck the Iranian gas field. Because of the anger over events in the Middle East, it's important to note the cynicism of Donald Trump here. Then he stated that the United States knew nothing about this particular attack, and Qatar was in no way involved and had no idea that it would happen. And the truth here is that Qatar really didn't know about the Israeli strike in advance, but Trump did know, yet he decided to claim that he didn't. In the end, Trump, like a great boss, declared, and I quote, "Israel will no longer attack this extremely important and valuable field, South Pars. Unless Iran makes a reckless decision to attack completely innocent Qatar, if Iran attacks Qatar again, the US, with or without the help or consent of Israel, will trigger a massive explosion of the entire South Pars gas field, with such force and power that Iran has never seen or witnessed before. If the Qatari liquefied natural gas plant is attacked again, I will do this without hesitation." But friends, we do remember several deadlines of Donald Trump's ultimatums to Vladimir Putin, right? Russia's war against Ukraine is still ongoing, and Trump has been in power for more than a year. There were several ultimatums and deadlines. Meanwhile, Iran has called on its neighbors to be vigilant and alert. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you found this episode interesting and useful, and you want to support the work of our state YouTube channel, you can do this financially through any donation, subscription, or membership on YouTube. It's very simple. All the links and details are in the description of this video. Or below this video, there are buttons to subscribe and join, or you can use the QR code on your screens. This is the most convenient way to support our channel's work with a one-time donation. I will be grateful for any support you can give. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.